1-inch Xiao Yan. When they saw the sudden appearance of Xiao Yan, the people of Tuanji gang below the stage were shocked, and their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the former. These days, in the eyes of the crowd, Xiao Yan was just a weak sovereign. He also knew that the 100,000 monarch crystals in the gang were taken out by him. Originally, they thought that he was just a lucky guy, but today, he sent Tai San flying with a single strike. Big brother Xiao, give them a good beating. Below the stage, when Lu Wu saw Xiao Yan appear, he was so excited that tears welled up in his eyes. When Du Ruoxi said that the Martial Strength Hall was going to fight the Tuanji gang in the Black region, Lu Wu knew what Xiao Yan had guessed had happened. Du Ruoxi had also been shocked by Xiao Yan, who had just advanced to the alien realm soul. The first reaction she had when she received the letter of challenge was to pull Xiao Yan along. She was rejected by Lu Wu because of Xiao Yan's cultivation. Although she was anxious, Du Ruoxi was not a brainless person, so she did not forcefully wake Xiao Yan up. Xiao Yan, although your soul power is very strong, you still have to be careful. They are very strong. Du Ruoxi struggled to get up and carefully warned Xiao Yan. Her eyes swept across and saw the unconscious Bai Lufeng in the arms of one of the Martial Strength Hall's men. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Xiao Yan's cold eyes looked at the three men from the Tuanji gang who had fainted due to the battle. These days, they had gotten along very well with Xiao Yan. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's expression became even colder. Don't worry. With their strength, there is no need for them to use their soul force. His eyes swept across the people from the Martial Strength Hall below the stage. Although there were many of them, Xiao Yan didn't put their strength in his eyes. Finally, his eyes stopped on Bai Julang. Xiao Yan let out a cold laugh and said slowly, "Kid, who are you?" Bai Julang wasn't a fool when he saw Xiao Yan send Tai San flying with a single punch. With Tai San's monarch spirit strength, he could send Tai San flying with a single punch. At least, he had to be at least at the 6th Dao monarch spirit or above. In the Black region, however, there were 5 or more monarch spirit experts. He could count them with 2 hands. Among all the monarch spirit warriors he knew, it seemed like this young man in front of him was nowhere to be found. While Bai Julang was guessing, some of the onlookers from the surrounding gangs were shocked as well. 3 monarch spirit warriors were sent flying with 1 punch, and their strength was at least at the 5th monarch spirit. Since when did this tiny Tuanji gang have such a powerful warrior? Xiao Yan laughed lightly, and his eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at Bai Julang. Didn't you want the monarch crystal? I took out the 100,000 monarch crystals. What do you think? If you want it, come up on your own. With Xiao Yan's current strength, there was no need for him to be afraid of anyone with the strength of monarch spirit and alien realm soul. He could take advantage of today's opportunity to consolidate Tuanji gang's position in Black region, so that no one would want to attack Tuanji gang in the future. Woo! When Bai Julang heard this, he didn't immediately accept the challenge as Xiao Yan had expected. Instead, he fell into deep thought. He was able to control the Martial Strength Hall. After so many years, he naturally had a deep mind. His eyes were fixed on Xiao Yan, but he didn't make any rash moves. Looking at the surrounding crowd, Xiao Yan smiled once again and said, "Of course. Anyone who can obtain the 100,000 monarch crystals can come up and fight me. How about it? What? Has this kid gone crazy? He's so arrogant just by defeating a 3rd Dao monarch spirit? What an ignorant fool. Such a person won't be able to live long in Black region." When the people below heard this, they were all startled. Then, they started laughing coldly, and their disdainful voices became louder and louder. Du Ruoxi was shocked when she saw Xiao Yan standing in the middle of the platform and declaring war on the entire Black region. She looked at Xiao Yan with disbelief in her eyes. Did this guy have something to rely on, or was he trying to make things difficult for her? All right, since Hallmaster Bai is unwilling to step forward, then let me give it a try. Not long after Xiao Yan's voice faded, a ferocious-looking bald man jumped out from the crowd and steadily stood on the stage. His voice was like thunder. Hee, it's Black Tiger, the leader of the Black Tiger gang, a subordinate of the Martial Strength Hall. This guy has the strength of a 5th Dao monarch spirit. When he's ruthless, even a 6th Dao monarch spirit is afraid of him. When they saw the bald man, the people below started discussing him. With just a few words, they had already explained the background of the bald man. Btth2 still did not speak. He looked at the bald man with a strange light flashing in his eyes. Kid, you are talking about 100,000 monarch crystals, right? The black evil tiger looked at Xiaoyan, who was only in front of its chest, and said with a cold smile, "Yes. Since that's the case, I'll make a bet with everyone here." After saying that, Xiaoyan looked at the aggressive bald man and said, "Your gang is a subordinate of the Martial Strength Hall. How about this? If you win against me, the 100,000 monarch crystals will belong to you." Under everyone's gaze, Xiaoyan flipped his hand and a monarch crystal card appeared in his palm. With a wave of his hand, a pile of monarch crystals fell out. What the? This? Seeing Xiaoyan casually throw out nearly 1,000 monarch crystals, everyone below began to pant. They wished that they could immediately kill that black-clothed young man. But if you lose, everything in your gang, even if it's just a blade of grass, will belong to the Tuanji gang. Xiaoyan's tone suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Black Evil Tiger. What? When the Black Tiger heard this, its facial expression changed, and a trace of a cold smile appeared on its ferocious face. It said, "Brat, you want my Black Tiger gang? Aren't you afraid of bursting to death?" As soon as his voice faded, the Black Fiend Tiger had already rushed towards Xiaoyan like a storm. The sharp origin monarch chi on his fist actually caused the surrounding air to have friction. "That means you have agreed." Xiaoyan smiled when he saw this. His expression did not change when he saw the charging Black Evil Tiger. Xiaoyan suddenly lowered his body the moment the latter's iron fist was about to hit his chest. His feet moved slightly and he easily dodged the furious attack of the Black Evil Tiger. Boom! Xiaoyan, who had dodged the attack, did not hesitate to raise his fist and suddenly struck the stomach of the Black Evil Tiger. The force was so great that it emitted sonic booms in the air. Puff! Xiaoyan's speed was so fast that the Black Tiger was hit before it could react. Its abdomen suffered a heavy blow. The Black Tiger couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Its huge body staggered and stood up. Before the crowd could react, it fell weakly onto the stage. He admitted defeat just like that? "All right, I will reluctantly accept your Black Tiger gang. Boss Do, let our brothers take over the Black Tiger gang later. If you are not convinced, let him come and find me." Without looking at the fallen Black Fiend Tiger, Xiaoyan raised his head and said in a clear voice, causing everyone below to be stunned. What? Black Fiend Tiger was punched by that brat? How is that possible? Could it be that that brat is an Emperor powerhouse? Du Ruoxi, who was below the stage, looked at Xiaoyan's smile. At this moment, that smile was a complete mystery in Du Ruoxi's eyes. When she heard Xiaoyan's words, she subconsciously agreed. "Bastard thing. What nonsense are you spouting? When did the Black Tiger gang let you take over?" There was no lack of members of the Black Tiger gang below. When they heard Xiaoyan's words, they were instantly enraged. Each and every one of them wished they could chop Xiaoyan into 8 pieces. Xiaoyan looked coldly at the few Black Tiger gang members who were clamoring and said coldly, "I've said it. Anyone who doesn't accept it can come and find me." The pressure contained in this gaze made the members of the Black Tiger gang tremble. Cold sweat broke out on their foreheads, and they were speechless for a moment. Seeing Xiaoyan standing alone on the stage and intimidating the nearly 100 people below, the eyes of the Tuanji gang members were filled with admiration. To these brave men, this was what they called a true man. Division Chief Bai, how about I make a bet with you? As one of the 3 big gangs in Black Region, Martial Strength Hall is indeed not something that some small gangs can compare with. If I lose, I'll give you 1 million monarch crystals. If you lose, everything in Martial Strength Hall will belong to Tuanji gang. Do you dare to bet? 1 inch, do you dare to bet? Xiaoyan stood on the stage and looked down at Btth2. He said word by word, and his eyes were full of coldness. 1 million. Is this kid crazy? This is forcing Hallmaster Bai to agree. Hearing Xiaoyan's words, everyone on the ground exploded because the disbelief of the Black Evil Tiger that was knocked down by a single strike was quickly interrupted by this sky-piercing thunderbolt. How arrogant! I really don't know how to write the word, death. When Btth2 heard this, he revealed a trace of shock. After that, he let out a cold laugh and said fiercely, "I have roamed the Black Region for dozens of years. There is nothing that I don't dare to do. If you lose today, I will take your life and 1,000,000 monarch crystals." Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Bai Zhulang walked into the arena while talking. Bai Lufeng, who was supported by a few subordinates of the martial strength hall, also woke up at this moment. He heard what Xiao Yan said. Bai Zhulang's strength was ranked in the top 5 of the Black region. Although this young man had killed the Black Evil Tiger with a single strike, there was still a huge difference between a peak of monarch spirit and a monarch spirit. Could this young man really be crazy? When Bai Zhulang stepped onto the stage, the whispers of the people below became louder. Some of the people who were thinking had already started thinking. Although this young man was only at the monarch spirit level, but, judging from his generous manner and boldness, he was obviously not someone an ordinary monarch spirit warrior could compare with. In other words, challenging Bai Zhulang wasn't just a hot-headedness. However, it would be a fool's dream to use this opportunity to defeat the latter. After all, the latter's reputation in Black region hadn't come in vain. The best situation right now was that both of them had suffered serious injuries at the same time. At that time, he would be the fisherman. A puny monarch spirit doesn't have your courage and courage. It's true that you are extraordinary for daring to call me Pan on this stage. However, isn't it just wishful thinking to think that you can defeat me with this? Bai Zhulang placed his hands behind his back and looked at Xiao Yan. Although the latter had killed the Black Evil Tiger with a single punch, it wasn't worth mentioning in his eyes. He had killed countless minor 5 monarch spirit in the past few years. Won't you know after trying? Xiao Yan smiled faintly and didn't try to defend himself. Over the past few days, he had heard too much about the past of Bai Zhulang from Lu Wu. Although the martial strength hall had 2 hallmasters, Bai Zhulang had almost emptied his nephew, Bai Lufeng. There was no real power in the gang, and some powerful people did not listen to Bai Lufeng at all. Under the leadership of Bai Zhulang, the martial strength hall had occupied nearly a third of the territory of the Black region. However, they still didn't give their nephew a single place to manage. "All right, I'll break your legs and make you kneel down and hand over 1,000,000 monarch crystals." When mentioning monarch crystals, a trace of greed flashed in Bai Zhulang's eyes. The martial strength hall only collected over 100,000 protection fees from the dozens of gangs under their jurisdiction every month. After removing the expenses of the gang and the recovery medicine pills that they had to buy, there were less than 80,000 monarch crystals left. Although there was some extra income from killing and robbing, it was too little in Bai Zhulang's eyes. His ambition was very big. He had always wanted to monopolize the entire Black region. However, ever since he suffered a loss at the hands of the Black sect, he finally knew how weak he was. With 1,000,000 monarch crystals, the time he had to advance to the Emperor realm could be counted on one hand. With time, it was not impossible for him to annex the mysterious gang. Bai Zhulang's movements were not the slightest bit slow as his brain thought quickly. His body moved after his voice sounded and rushed towards Xiao Yan. His speed was more than a level faster than the Black Evil Tiger. Powerful origin monarch qis wildly surged out from both of his palms and a sharp aura gradually agglomerated. "1,000 waves palm," Bai Zhulang furiously cried out. The blue light on his palms suddenly brightened, and he ruthlessly struck out at a mysterious angle. The powerful origin monarch qi turned into 1,000 layers of huge waves, and kept rushing towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's expression did not change. With a flip of his palm, the blue flame ruler was already in his hand. A glowing origin chains in his body was vibrating intensely. The origin monarch qi that was emitting from it followed the specific meridians and instantly flowed into every part of Xiao Yan's body. 8-directional thunder ruler. With a soft shout in his heart, the blue flame ruler in Xiao Yan's hand began to swing rapidly. The powerful origin monarch qi was waved 8 times in the air in an instant. The space in front of Xiao Yan was filled with silver lightning arcs. When thousands of layers of huge waves swept down, the Xiao Yans in Xiao Yan's hand also violently collided with each other. The surrounding silver lightning arcs instantly shot out in all directions. Like tiny lightning snakes, they roared as they charged forward and charged into the monstrous 1,000 waves. The 1,000 large waves had already scattered in the blink of an eye. Under everyone's shocked eyes, the space in front of Xiao Yan seemed to be filled with endless lightning. Although the huge waves were powerful, they could not break through the protection of the lightning. Instead, the lightning arcs that filled the sky rushed into the huge waves, eroding the layers of huge waves and dissipating them. How is this possible? The 1,000 waves palm of the 100 Hall Masters was enough to kill an ordinary monarch spirit, but it didn't have any effect on this guy? Some of the higher-ups of the Martial Strength Hall were shocked when they saw this. They looked at Xiao Yan with shock, and Bai Lufeng's heart jumped to his throat. On the one hand, he hoped that Xiao Yan would win, otherwise, given Bai Zhulang's character. At that time, the Tuanji gang would never be able to escape the fate of being destroyed. Du Ruoxi would most likely be killed by him, but on the other hand, he didn't wish for Xiao Yan to win. After living in Black Region for so long, he knew that there would only be one outcome for losing. That was death. Bai Zhulang was his only family member. Although he hated Bai Zhulang to the core, he still couldn't bear it. Bastard, you're actually alright. Bai Zhulang's eyes were filled with shock, then he smiled coldly. The origin monarch qi in his body surged out crazily once again, and the qi that was much sharper than before burst out once again. 1,000 waves palm, 1,000 layered waves. He let out an angry shout. On Bai Zhulang's palm, an even more powerful origin monarch qi caused some of the weaker people below to turn pale. A peak of monarch spirit warrior was really powerful. 1,000 waves palm was a high-grade monarch spell. It was divided into 3 steps, 10 surges, 100 waves, and 1,000 waves. Each step was stronger than the last. In the beginning, Bai Zhulang had already used the 100 waves, but he never thought it would have no effect on Xiao Yan. He made up his mind and unleashed all the origin monarch qis on his body, unleashing the strongest step of the 1,000 waves palm. Feeling the pressure on the blue flame ruler increasing, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. Through the layers of waves, he saw the proud look in Bai Zhulang's eyes. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. After that, he exerted force on his wrist, and the lightning arcs attached to the surface of the blue flame ruler instantly exploded. Like a giant blade that cut through the sky and the sea, the blue flame ruler directly cut through the layers of waves. The ruler's blade pointed straight at Bai Zhulang. It actually broke through. When Bai Zhulang, who was feeling proud of himself, saw this, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. The monarch skill that he was most proud of had been broken by a puny monarch spirit. The shock in his heart could be imagined. Seeing that Xiao Yan was about to approach him, Bai Zhulang let out an angry roar as if he had just woken up from a dream. Both of his palms struck out. Countless waves of water rushed towards Xiao Yan from all directions. Insignificant skill. Xiao Yan coldly snorted. Under the observation of alien realm soul, he had seen every little movement of Bai Zhulang. When he saw the waves that covered the sky and covered the earth, Xiao Yan waved the blue flame ruler in his hand once again. In a short period of time, the sharp aura had scattered all the waves. When he saw that his strongest monarch skill was broken by Xiao Yan so easily, a trace of panic appeared on Bai Zhulang's face. He had thought that there might be a fierce battle between him and Xiao Yan, but he had never thought that he would be defeated so thoroughly. Old thing, show me what other skills you have. Xiao Yan held the blue flame ruler and pointed at Bai Zhulang with a cold expression. Bai Zhulang's monarch skill was indeed very powerful, but unfortunately, its user was too weak. If it was used by an emperor, Xiao Yan would need to use a lot of energy to break it. Bai Zhulang's eyes swept across the crowd below the stage. Many of them were thinking about the Martial Strength Hall. It was because of him that they didn't dare to act rashly. Therefore, for the sake of their goal, they couldn't afford to lose. When his eyes swept across the crowd below the stage, a cold smile suddenly emerged on Bai Zhulang's face. He smiled coldly at Xiao Yan, then his body flashed and he rushed towards Du Ruoxi, who was standing in front of the people from the Tuanji gang. One Xiao Yan immediately reacted when he saw Bai Zhulang suddenly rushing towards Du Ruoxi. He gritted his teeth and cursed himself for being too careless. He stomped on the ground and a trace of wind energy emerged from his feet. His body had already rushed towards Bai Zhulang. Sensing that Xiao Yan was rushing towards him, a trace of viciousness emerged on Bai Zhulang's face. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a strand of blood essence that instantly covered his entire body. At the same time, Bai Zhulang's speed also increased exponentially. Swoosh! In a split second, Bai Zhulang had already grabbed Du Ruoxi's arm and pulled her up to block in front of him. Kid, if you take another step forward, I will immediately kill her. Bai Zhulang furiously roared. At the same time, a hand had already grabbed Du Ruoxi's snow-white neck. With the former's strength, as long as he slightly exerted force, Du Ruoxi would die. Damn it! Xiao Yan, who was about to reach Bai Zhulang, had no choice but to stop. He looked at the sneering Bai Zhulang with a cold expression and said coldly, "If you kill her, I will bury you with all the people of Martial Strength Hall." "Ha. It doesn't matter. I admit that I can't beat you. Since that's the case, I will let you suffer a little." Bai Zhulang slightly exerted force on her hand. Du Ruoxi's face immediately flushed red. No matter how hard she struggled, it was useless. "Uncle, put her down." Bai Lufeng, who had reacted, almost went crazy when he saw this. He shouted at the top of his lungs. "Shut up, bastard! Who has raised you? Have you forgotten who you are? After I take care of this kid, you're next." Bai Zhulang looked at Bai Lufeng with a gloomy expression and said in a dense tone. After saying that, he looked at Xiao Yan, who was not far away, and said with a smile, "Take out 1 million monarch crystals. You will be responsible for collecting this woman's corpse." As he spoke, Bai Zhulang raised his arm and lifted Du Ruoxi by her neck. Du Ruoxi's 4 limbs were powerless to struggle in the air, but they were useless. "Bai Zhulang, to think that you are still the hall master of the Wu Wei Hall. Aren't you afraid of the mockery of the people in Black Region?" Bai Lufeng's heart almost shattered when he saw Du Ruoxi struggling helplessly. He looked at Bai Zhulang with bloodshot eyes and shouted at the top of his voice. "Mockery? What a joke! Who dares to laugh at me? My nephew, you are still too young. In the Black Region, only those who use unscrupulous means can live for a long time." Bai Zhulang sneered and looked at the angry and calm expressions of the crowd below the stage. He said faintly and then looked at the indifferent Xiao Yan. He smiled and said, "Little guy, have you thought about it?" HMPH. Xiao Yan heard this and sneered. He flipped his palm and a golden monarch crystal card appeared in his hand. Seeing the sudden appearance of the golden monarch crystal card, Bai Zhulang's breathing became hurried. He increased the strength in his hand, causing Du Ruoxi to struggle even more. "Ruoxi!" Bai Lufeng could not stand it anymore. He jumped up and rushed towards Bai Zhulang crazily as if he had lost his mind. The origin monarch chi in his body surged out and formed a blue python in his hand. He spat out his ferocious tongue and rushed towards Bai Zhulang. "Bastard!" Bai Zhulang was furious when he saw Bai Lufeng attacking him in front of so many people. He smiled coldly and instantly pulled Du Ruoxi towards the direction of Bai Lufeng's attack. "Woo!" Bai Lufeng was shocked when he saw Du Ruoxi suddenly appear in the path of the giant python's attack. He hastily let out a furious roar and forcefully cut off the connection between the origin monarch chi and the giant python. "Oh woo!" After losing the origin monarch chi, the giant python let out a miserable shriek. Its body, which was dozens of meters long, instantly disappeared into the air. Bai Lufeng, who had forcefully cut off the attack, also received a strong counterforce. The origin monarch chi in his body rolled and his blood and chi tumbled. He couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned a little pale. "Little bastard, you're still too tender." Looking at the weakened Bai Lufeng, Bai Zhulang revealed a cruel smile. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan and stared at the golden monarch crystal card in Xiao Yan's hand. He said anxiously, "Don't play any tricks. Throw it over to me. Release him immediately when you get the monarch crystal," Xiao Yan said coldly. His voice contained a trace of killing intent that was difficult to detect. "You don't have the right to order me now. I'll count to 3. Otherwise, this woman will die in front of you." Bai Zhulang looked at Xiao Yan and said in the same cold tone, "Don't talk so much nonsense. Here you go." Xiao Yan smiled casually and threw the golden monarch crystal card at Bai Zhulang. 1 million. Just like that? For a woman. This. Most of the people below were cruel and merciless. Naturally, they would not show compassion to women. When they saw Xiao Yan take out 1 million monarch crystals for a woman, they found it hard to believe. The pale Bai Lufeng looked at Xiao Yan, who threw out 1 million Xiao Yans carelessly. A trace of loneliness flashed across his eyes. After that, he laughed at himself. He thought about how he hesitated for a long time, but he didn't have the courage of this young man. He opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. That's right. Seeing the golden monarch crystal card flying towards him, Bai Zhulang laughed loudly. He stretched out his empty hand, and the suction force increased exponentially. It was about to suck the golden monarch crystal card over. Xiao Yan's expression didn't change as he watched Bai Zhulang's action. When the monarch crystal card was about to fall into the latter's hand, Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly focused. An invisible soul force instantly surged out from between his brows, and pushed the golden monarch crystal card to the side in an instant. After grabbing empty air, Bai Zhulang was stunned for a moment. Then, he subconsciously threw himself at the monarch crystal card, which was only a few feet away from him. He could not help but loosen his grip on Du Ruoxi's neck. At this moment, Xiao Yan's body suddenly moved. His enormous soul force was like a sharp sword. He took advantage of the time when Bai Zhulang temporarily relaxed his defense and stabbed towards the center of the latter's brows. At the same time, he used the 9-rotation wind technique to its limit. Everyone could only see a blurry black shadow flashing across the stage. In the next moment, Xiao Yan had already appeared in front of Bai Zhulang. The instant Xiao Yan appeared in front of him, Bai Zhulang's expression changed drastically. He immediately abandoned the golden monarch crystal card that was right in front of him and pulled Du Ruoxi in front of him. Buzz! Just as Bai Zhulang moved, a fierce and vast soul force struck his soul like a heavy hammer. It made a buzzing sound, and the intense pain instantly spread throughout his body. Bai Zhulang's movement couldn't help but slow down. Boom! Using this moment to block, Xiao Yan's fist was like a shooting star chasing the moon. It hit Bai Zhulang's abdomen without hesitation, and the huge force even caused the air to vibrate. Puff! Xiao Yan mercilessly hit Bai Zhulang's abdomen. Bai Zhulang was in so much pain that his liver almost cracked. An indescribable pain covered his entire body, causing him to feel dizzy. The strength in his body quickly faded, and he could not help but loosen his grip on Du Ruoxi's neck. Dong! Du Ruoxi, who had lost her balance, powerlessly fell to the ground. Her face was pale, and she coughed violently. There were obvious traces of blood on her snow-white neck. Ruoxi! Bai Lufeng hurriedly pounced forward when he saw this. He hugged Du Ruoxi and rubbed her pale face with a heartache. Du Ruoxi struggled to open her eyes and looked at Bai Lufeng in front of her. Her beautiful large eyes involuntarily revealed a smile. Soon, tears flowed out of her eyes. Bai Zhulang was also sent flying to the edge of the martial arts arena. He panted intensely and coughed out a lot of blood every time he coughed. He looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing on the stage, and his face was filled with shock. He could not even take a punch from Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, thank you. Du Ruoxi lifted her head from Bai Lufeng's arms and looked at Xiao Yan, who was standing beside her. She spoke in a sincere tone. Bai Lufeng also raised his head and looked at Xiao Yan. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. He didn't know if he should thank Xiao Yan or not. You must be Bai Lufeng. Bai Zhulang must die today, and the martial strength hall must also be annexed by the Tuanji gang. If you are dissatisfied, you can come and fight me. If you are convinced, you and Sister Ruoxi will be in love with each other. In the future, both of you will be in charge of the Tuanji gang. After saying that, Xiao Yan expressionlessly walked towards Bai Zhulang, who was struggling to get up. The killing intent on his body was revealed without a doubt. Behind him, Bai Lufeng was hugging Du Ruoxi tightly, and his expression was full of struggle. Du Ruoxi looked at the man in front of her and saw his struggling expression. She could not bear it anymore. Her trembling hand gently touched Bai Lufeng's cheek and forced a smile. Bai Zhulang is your uncle after all. As she spoke, Du Ruoxi could no longer continue pretending. She threw herself into Bai Lufeng's arms and started sobbing, but she did not blame Xiao Yan for hating her. This was the law of Black Region. It was changed. Anyone would be like this. By the way, if you are dissatisfied, after Bai Zhulang's death, you can lead the martial strength hall and fight the Tuanji gang to the end. At that time, I don't mind killing one more person. Xiao Yan suddenly stopped in his tracks, turned around and said to Bai Lufeng with a smile on his face. After that, he suddenly moved and arrived next to Bai Zhulang, who was struggling to get up. Without hesitation, he threw a punch at Bai Zhulang's chest. Bai Zhulang couldn't dodge in time, and his chest caved in. Blood mixed with broken liver spurted out from his mouth. There was a crazy hatred in his eyes. Bai Zhulang's ruthless eyes swept across Xiao Yan. After that, he looked at Bai Lufeng, who was not far away from him. He stretched out his finger stiffly and said with great effort, "Bastard. If I knew this would happen, I would have killed you." As soon as he finished speaking, his powerless legs could no longer support his huge body. He fell down from the fighting arena powerlessly and landed in front of the people of Tuanji Gang. Bai Julang is dead? This is one of the top 5 experts of Black Region. He was killed so easily. Who is this young man? When they saw Bai Julang's death, everyone below the stage sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking at Xiao Yan on the stage, their eyes were filled with fear and dread. In Black Region, killing people had become a common occurrence for these people. It was common for monarch spirit warriors to die if they were careless. However, Bai Julang was a powerful warrior who had been famous in the Black Region for a long time. Now, he was killed by a young man who suddenly appeared. This had really exceeded everyone's imagination. Hallmaster has been killed. The people of Martial Strength Hall could only watch as Bai Julang fell to the ground, like a giant pillar falling down from the sky. They instantly felt endless fear. Under normal circumstances, when 2 factions fought, the victorious side slaughtered all the members of the defeated side. Although the Martial Strength Hall was a large gang with hundreds of people, if the young man on the stage really wanted to kill them, they were powerless to stop him. "Brother Xiao, well done." Below the stage, when Lu Wu saw Bai Julang fall in front of his own gang, he couldn't help but cheer loudly. When the other members saw this, their blood boiled. They couldn't help but follow Lu Wu's loud shout. The loud and clear voice instantly shook the entire martial arena. Witnessing Bai Julang's death, Bai Lufeng's body suddenly trembled. Then he bitterly smiled. The trace of hatred in his heart had already disappeared. Since he was living in Black Region, he had to be prepared to die. Being killed could only mean that he was not strong enough. No one would sympathize with him. Furthermore, all these years, no one knew how many people had died under Bai Julang's hands. Thinking of this, Bai Lufeng really couldn't bring himself to hate Xiao Yan. Looking at Du Ruoxi who was sobbing in his arms, Bai Lufeng's eyes were full of pity. Between family and love, he had completely fallen into a struggle. His fingers gently caressed Du Ruoxi's delicate face. When his fingertips touched the blood that came out of Du Ruoxi's neck, Bai Lufeng's face changed. Looking at the slowly flowing blood on Du Ruoxi's neck, the struggle in Bai Lufeng's eyes instantly turned into determination. He treated Bai Julang as his family. The latter had never treated him as his nephew. He had always been wary and cold towards Bai Lufeng. All these years, he was called the second Hall Master of Martial Strength Hall, but he did not have any power. The women that he liked were almost killed. Slowly caressing Du Ruoxi's hair, Bai Lufeng looked at Xiao Yan with a determined expression. "I'm convinced. I declare as the second Master of Martial Strength Hall that from now on, Martial Strength Hall will be merged into the Tuanji Gang." As soon as the words left his mouth, the crowd went into an uproar. Some of the leaders of the gangs were dumbfounded. The Martial Strength Hall was one of the 3 major gangs in the Black Region. He was actually swallowed up by a tiny Tuanji gang. "I'm afraid the power of Black Region will be reshuffled in the future." This was what most people were thinking. Xiao Yan smiled lightly when he heard this. He walked to the 2 of them and looked at Bai Fengfeng. "Get up first." Bai Lufeng helped Du Ruoxi stand up with great effort. Before he could stand up, Xiao Yan already kicked. When the kick hit Bai Lufeng, the latter immediately became like a cannonball. He slid on the stage for a few meters before stopping. After that, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. "Xiao Yan, you." Du Ruoxi was shocked when she saw this. She was about to ask when Xiao Yan stopped her and said in a deep voice, "Nothing will happen to him. Don't worry." After saying that, she came to Bai Lufeng's side. Bai Lufeng also struggled to stand up. His face was covered with blood. He looked at Xiao Yan with confusion. "This is to tell you that if you can't even protect the woman you love, what kind of man are you?" Xiao Yan stared at Bai Lufeng's puzzled eyes and said coldly. The latter was stunned for a moment. Then, the confusion in his eyes turned into shame. The last trace of resentment in his heart dissipated immediately. He looked at Du Ruoxi and said in a firm and trembling voice, "In the future, I will not let her suffer any harm." When Xiao Yan saw this, he could not help but feel delighted in his heart. Looking at Bai Lufeng who was staggering towards Du Ruoxi, he secretly said, "Boss, now I can finally stop you from saving my life." Looking at Du Ruoxi and Bai Lufeng who were hugging each other, everyone on the ground had mixed feelings in their hearts. The people from the Tuanji gang were cheering, the people from the Martial Strength Hall were stunned, and the rest of them had mixed feelings. Members of the Martial Strength Hall, your second hall master has announced that the Martial Strength Hall has merged with the Tuanji gang. Anyone who refuses to accept the challenge can come and challenge me. I have no objections to leaving the Martial Strength Hall. However, who would dare to join in with ulterior motives? I won't be lenient. Standing on the stage, he looked down at the people of Martial Strength Hall below the stage. Xiao Yan said faintly. The vigorous voice mixed with origin monarch cheese resounded in everyone's ears. At the same time, alien realm soul rushed out from between their eyebrows without holding back, bringing incomparable pressure to the people below. There was no lack of iron-blooded men in the crowd. After witnessing Xiao Yan's thunderous means and decisiveness, they couldn't help but admire him. He answered loudly without hesitation. Some of them were attracted by the million Xiao Yans that Xiao Yan had mentioned and joined without hesitation. A few of them who were dissatisfied felt the tremendous pressure from Xiao Yan and agreed without hesitation. Seeing that Xiao Yan had easily recruited the people of Martial Strength Hall, the leaders of the other gangs all felt relieved in their hearts. This guy's way of doing things was decisive. He really had the demeanor of a superior person. All right, boss. From now on, they will all be your subordinates. Sensing Du Ruoxi and Bai Lufeng walking over, Xiao Yan instantly withdrew his soul energy and smiled at the two of them. You're still calling me boss? You must be angry at me. Du Ruoxi looked at Xiao Yan unhappily. Then she smiled and said, I have discussed with Lu Feng just now about accepting such a big gang in Martial Strength Hall. With my ability, I can't control it, but you are full of charisma. Why don't you be the boss? Don't reject me, I saved your life. You must agree to my conditions. Du Ruoxi looked at Xiao Yan with a cunning look in her eyes. Xiao Yan was stunned and looked at Bai Lufeng. The latter also said sincerely, Big brother Xiao Yan does have the demeanor of a leader. I know Ruoxi's ability, but she is not qualified. Of course, I know Big brother Xiao Yan has important matters to attend to, but he can temporarily be the boss. When the gang is stable, Ruoxi can manage it. Xiao Yan heard this and thought for a while. He could only nod his head. Okay, it's settled then. But in the future, the leaders of the gang will still be the two of you. I'm just temporarily acting on behalf of them. Looking at the two excited people in front of him, Xiao Yan smiled and did not say anything. He had long seen through Du Ruoxi's evil ideas. She still wanted to get closer to Bai Lufeng, so she left this mess to him. I will have a lot of work to do these few days. Looking at the crowd below the stage, Xiao Yan's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. When the news of the Martial Strength Hall being annexed by the Tuanji gang was spread out, it was as if a huge rock had been thrown onto the surface of the silent water. The entire Black region was shaken. After hearing about Xiao Yan's fierceness at that time, most of them temporarily put aside their little plans and started thinking about how to cooperate with this newly emerged colossus. The western region of Black region was the territory of the Lincoln gang. As the largest gang in the western region, the strength of the Lincoln gang was more than a level higher than the Martial Strength Hall. The reason was that the relationship between the Lincoln gang and the Spirit Sky City's Feng family had been circulating in Black region for a long time. The headquarters of the Lincoln gang was a grand courtyard with dozens of luxurious rooms. All of them were occupied by the higher-ups of the Lincoln gang. The innermost part of the courtyard was a large and luxurious hall. It was the meeting room of the Lincoln gang. Currently, the meeting room was filled with the core members of the Lincoln gang. The Martial Strength Hall was annexed by an unknown small gang. That young man named Xiao Yan is indeed extraordinary. With the strength of monarch spirit, he was able to kill Bai Julang in a short period of time. This strength and potential is enough to shake the entire Black region. One of the core members of the Lincoln spoke first. His tone was full of admiration. That's right. I heard that he was seriously injured and was rescued by Du Ruoxi. His background is unknown, and he must have an extraordinary background to have such strength. A middle-aged man sitting in the upper seat also stood up and said, The most important thing right now should be to organize the subordinates. The Martial Strength Hall will definitely clean up this time. There should be a lot of benefits from the leaders of the gangs involved. This is a chance for us to become stronger. Some of them looked into the distance and said in a deep voice, Leader, what do you think? Seeing that everyone was expressing their opinions, a lean middle-aged man sitting in the deputy seat looked at the green-robed old man who was deep in thought and said respectfully. The azure-clothed old man narrowed his eyes and lightly tapped the table with his 2 fingers. When everyone saw this, they immediately stopped their discussion. In the huge conference hall, only the sound of the old man lightly tapping the table echoed. After a long time, the old man in green slowly said, "This young man named Xiao Yan has excellent means. It turns out that the gangs under the Martial Strength Hall will be taken care of by him. Don't take any action yet." When he opened the gang, he sent someone to bring some gifts to congratulate him, and to build a good relationship with them first. Although we are not afraid, we are not in a hurry. Such a young and promising guy. The clan should be very interested. In the luxurious meeting hall of Martial Strength Hall, Xiao Yan sat down on Bai Julang's seat. He suddenly felt comfortable. Then he looked at Du Ruoxi and Bai Lufeng in the meeting room. "I told the chiefs of the various gangs in Black Region that we will have a meeting in 2 days. The 2 of you will settle everything within these 2 days. What? You mean you want to be a hands-free manager?" Du Ruoxi was dissatisfied when she heard that. "I am the boss. I need to be busy with a lot of things. Besides, how dare you disobey the orders of the boss?" Xiao Yan said with a smile. He stood up and left with a smile, leaving Du Ruoxi and Bai Lufeng with angry faces. "I never thought that this person would be so shameless." Du Ruoxi looked at Xiao Yan's back as he left and said indignantly. Bai Lufeng laughed lightly and said, "We should be able to understand Xiao Yan's actions. What he wants to do now is not this kind of small matter, but to resolve the instability of the new gang. How can this be considered a small matter?" Du Ruoxi pouted and looked at Bai Lufeng, who was standing at the side, stunned. "By the way, what do you think the name of the new gang is better?" After complaining, Du Ruoxi thought of this and suddenly said excitedly. The Red Dragon Hall was one of the most powerful gangs in this domain other than the Martial Strength Hall. It had nearly 100 members, and was the only gang in this domain that dared to go against the Martial Strength Hall. The 3 hall masters of the Red Dragon Hall were brothers. They were ambitious. Their strength had reached the 7 monarch spirit. It was said that a few years ago, the 3 of them had obtained a scroll of the monarch skill. After cultivating, the 3 of them were strong enough to fight an emperor. The only drawback was that the 3 of them had to fight at the same time. The power of one less person would be greatly reduced. This was also the reason why Red Dragon Hall was unable to replace Martial Strength Hall. At this moment, Xiao Yan was standing in front of the entrance of the Red Dragon Hall. In front of him were the 3 hall masters of the Red Dragon Hall, and behind them were dozens of elite members. "Ha ha! I just heard about the awe-inspiring deeds of Sect Master Xiao Yan from my subordinate. Now, I'm here. It's the honor of the Red Dragon Hall." The eldest of the 3 brothers looked coldly at Xiao Yan, who had come alone, and said with a cold smile. "Gang Lord Xiao injured Bai Julang with a single strike. His strength is ranked among the top in the entire Black Region. Is he still not satisfied with taking control of the Martial Strength Hall and wants to annex the Red Dragon Hall?" The tall second brother also said with a sneer. Seeing Xiao Yan's noncommittal smile, third brother snorted coldly. "Don't think that you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth just because you defeated Bai Julang. The 3 of us already have the strength to kill him. It's just that we haven't made a move yet." Xiao Yan didn't say anything. A surge of soul energy surged out from between his brows, and like a giant hammer, it struck towards the 3 of them. The powerful soul energy even swept away the surrounding rubble and debris, and swept out like a violent storm. Soul energy? When the eldest of the 3 brothers saw this scene, his eyes focused as he knew what was going on. His expression changed slightly, but before he could say anything, the other 2 stood behind him and formed a strange formation. The 2 of them crazily injected the enormous origin monarch chi in their bodies into their boss's body. Their boss furiously roared. Both of his hands suddenly slapped out, forming a huge storm. Everything within the storm was torn apart. Xiao Yan's giant soul hammer entered the storm. After a moment of deadlock with the storm, they were all destroyed in the end. This monarch skill can actually withstand a soul attack? Xiao Yan was also surprised that his attack failed. He looked at the formation formed by the 3 brothers and couldn't help but think about it. The monarch skill that they had obtained was a joint attack. This should be it. I never thought that this guy's soul energy is so strong. It seems like he isn't any weaker than some great alchemists from the Spirit Sky City's Alchemist Association. Looking at the storm and Xiao Yan's soul energy being destroyed at the same time, the second brother of the three brothers said in shock. Although his soul energy is strong, his strength is only at the monarch spirit. With the combination of the three of us, the monarch skill is more than enough to kill him, third brother gently shouted. The origin monarch chi had already surged into his hands, and a shocking amount of energy continuously gushed out from it. Kill! The eldest brother shouted out loudly. The three of them rushed towards Xiao Yan at the same time. They struck out 6 palms at the same time, bringing with them a tremendous force as they attacked. The violent origin monarch chi caused the surrounding gravel to fly into the air, before quietly shattering. Xiao Yan's expression was slightly shocked. Under the joint attack of these 3 men, even an ordinary palm strike was so powerful. It was comparable to Bai Julang's 1,000 waves palm's 100 layered waves. If these 3 men used their full strength, they would be able to kill Bai Julang with ease. The wind power under his feet quietly formed. Xiao Yan quickly dodged the 6 palms of these 3 men. Seeing this, the 3 brothers shouted out softly. Their speed suddenly increased, and in the blink of an eye, they had arrived in front of Xiao Yan. 3 punches were thrown out at the same time, and 3 astonishing forces converged together. It formed a huge fist made of origin monarch chis, and it was filled with an astonishing power. It was like a shooting star flashing across the sky as it smashed towards Xiao Yan. He couldn't dodge in time. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. The origin monarch chi within his body violently surged out. In an instant, he had already swung his right fist. The sky spill fist carried a sharp pressure as it violently collided with the huge fist. Bang! A loud sound was emitted. A shocking energy overflowed in all directions, causing the surrounding members of the Red Dragon Hall to be flipped over one by one. Some of the surrounding trees were shattered with a loud bang. Some of the stone walls were also shattered into pieces. The enormous force caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily take a few steps back. The waves of numbing pain that came from his right fist caused him to frown slightly. The origin monarch chi in his body also rolled, and his blood essence surged wildly. The combined punch of these 3 people was comparable to an ordinary emperor's attack. This brat is actually not injured. The 3 brothers didn't move at all. When they saw that Xiao Yan had only taken a few steps back, all of them turned pale with fright. With this punch, not to mention monarch spirit, even peak of monarch spirit wouldn't be able to withstand it. Hey, as expected of the man who killed Bai Julang with ease. His strength is indeed formidable, the eldest brother said with a gloomy expression. After that, he let out an angry shout. The 3 of them moved and lunged at him once more. Xiao Yan looked at the 3 of them who were rushing towards him. He let out a cold snort and rushed forward as well.